over there at the Garden. The Rob Williams debut, Bobby, turned out to be a total dud tonight as the Celtics. I don't think anybody saw this one coming. Full team, Al Horford, Rob Williams return. No minutes restrictions on anybody. Full team ready to go against one of the worst teams in basketball, a team that was 1-11 on the road coming into tonight's game against the Celtics. 2 for 11 after tonight now, Bobby. I mean, 2 and 11. Celtics lose to the freaking Magic. 117-109. The worst thing about this, Bobby, is it wasn't really ever competitive. Orlando got out, to a 6, 7, 8 point lead somewhere in that second quarter. Basically kept it there the entire half. Celtics never got within 7 points in this game the rest of the way. The lead kind of stayed between 7 and 14 there. Didn't make a single run. A million things to nitpick here, so I'll kind of start with you. You were there. Lackluster, it was something you put in the text thread, Bobby, but what was your kind of takeaways there?
Yeah, they got sloppy they got sloppy on the ball early in this one. They shut out to that 14-4 lead, and Tatum throwing a pass behind. Smart lost the ball early and let Boncaro run in transition, and they gave the Magic quite a bit of momentum running in transition early. Rim runs from Mo Wagner were devastating. Bad defense. I thought worse offense, launching threes, a lot of isolation, not great movement, not great activity off the ball. And Rob, coming into it, we knew this was going to be an adjustment, but I don't think that was the issue tonight. It did get sloppy when he came off the bench, and he didn't seem to be in the right position a lot of times. And of course, he fouled 3 times in 4 minutes there. But that stuff plagued the Celtics throughout the game. Horford gets ejected. Tatum gets teed up. Frustration mounted. And you can't think of anything other than some awful shooting. After that 3 of 5 start from 3, they go 8 of 41. And that's becoming a trend for this group, as you talked about in the chat as well, as some sinking shooting numbers for Sam Hauser, Derek White, Marcus Smart, Tatum and Brown haven't had great shooting numbers all year. And they've talked about their offense impacting their defense at times, and that seemed to be what happened tonight. They just gave up basket after basket to Fultz, Wagner, the other Wagner. They just took it to them offensively, and Celtics got lit up here on both ends.
Bad. It's a lot of standing around both on offense and defense. Sloppy like hell. Bad defense off the ball. One thing that stood out to me coming in the half, first play. What happens first play of the second half for Orlando? You remember?
First play, second half.
First play, second half, right out of the gate, Wagner backdoors Jaylen Brown for a dunk or for a layup. Right out of the gate. You come out and you played a garbage first half. And where's your focus at? First play of the game, you literally fall asleep and there's a back cut for an open layup to start the thing. I thought to me that really set the tone. A lot of things set the tone. But just the sloppiness throughout, the turnovers, the ones that always bug me the most, the ones you hate to see, are the sloppy ones versus the aggressive ones. And again, the total number is not standing out to you at 14, but it was turnovers. I mean, Jaylen had half.
They had a few other ones that could have been turnovers.
It was
too.
A lot of turnover-worthy plays. It was not it was not a night where they took care of the basketball at all. But the threes are the thing that's going to come back and kind of haunt you here. And we'll get into Rob a little bit because what did you want out of Rob? This was a weird one for him. You're playing a team that has a couple of bigs. You lost Al Horford with a really weird ejection. In this
what do you think happened there? Was frustration mounting or something? That was just such a weird play.
It's a weird play. I don't know if he's going for the nut shot specifically. He's going for a little elbow. He might have just gotten too low with it. I don't think he's intentionally going down there. Or maybe he was, and he's like, screw it. I'm going to give this guy a warning.
And that might be a suspension. That might be one game. We'll see.
I don't know. But not a great thing for Rob because you couldn't manage his minutes the way you wanted. I think what you really wanted out of Rob were 3 or 4, maybe 3, maybe 4 4-minute stints. I think that's all he had in him. You're right. He looked incredibly lost the first time out there. I thought the overall Rob minutes, the team didn't know what to do when he was out there either. It was a real mess. But then probably the best run they had and their best play was in that third quarter. They fell down by as many as 17, I believe, there early in that third quarter. And Rob came in, and you had the Jalen dunk, and then the Jalen, wild layup, Rob follow dunk, and a block, and a couple of things. And there were some good energy plays in there. And that was, I think, the best little run the Celtics had the entire second half. And then his next stint, he was gassed again. And again, I think Joe brought him in a little early. Joe brought him in at about the 8.5 minute mark, and I think he was going to try to play him the rest of the way. And maybe 3 to 4 minutes into that stint, he couldn't even get 3-point line to 3-point line. He was absolutely just gassed.
Yeah, and if you say coming into this one that he was going to give you 9-5, a block and a steal, and play 17 minutes, you probably take that. But
which is fine, yeah.
But the inability to get into that second half of that run in the third quarter there was a killer moment, because they play the pump up video on the Jumbotron, well timed. Yeah, he just had that great run. They pull within single digits there. And like you said, that's when the exhaustion followed there, and he pretty much didn't play the rest of the game after that. But that's what you expected from him tonight. Again, he's going to have to get his legs under him. He's going to have to get within the flow of the offense. There's going to be a challenge. They bring him off the bench here, as I talked about.
Yeah.
This wasn't an issue of Rob tonight. In fact, he boosted them more than anything. This crowd went nuts whenever he went in. They were dying to get off their feet. This is a bad Tatum game, awful Brown game. Smart wasn't phenomenal, but
Derek White disappearing act.
He tried to pick them up a little bit.
Continues to.
Yeah, and you get ejected from the game as Horford. That throws everything off into the second half. Everyone just didn't show up for this one. And now we're talking 3 losses in 4 games. They're near the bottom of the league offensively over that stretch. I saw they were 28th over their last 4 coming into this one. I don't know what's going on there. I always said, what's going to happen when the shooting comes back to earth? And they're still shooting 50% of their shots from 3, not much at the rim, not a ton in between. They're reliant on that right now. Maybe over-reliant.
So here's the thing. And so just to put a bow on the Rob thing, what's the most important thing? He actually looked, I knew he'd be tired and not be in shape. And honestly, it's a little annoying because I know he came off surgery, but I don't know how his offseason went. I don't know how his conditioning went. You don't expect him to be in game shape here, but he looks like he's still weeks and weeks away from being in any sort of close to basketball shape. So I think you're looking at 15 minutes a night for him for the foreseeable future, and you'll live with that, because you were winning without him, and that's fine. But physically, when he was entering games, he looked springy, he looked quick, he looked like he was bouncing on his toes. He had the lift, he had 4 dunks tonight. So no worries there. It's the basketball. He looked lost. He didn't know where to be. He didn't know where to be on offense. He overcommitted on defense a few times, jumped out a couple times on threes.
Kicking out to Brogdon for 3. That was probably his best
play
of the night.
I think he should have gone up with that, but fine. It ended up in a positive result. Doesn't matter. Physically, he looked fine. That's what you're most worried about with Rob. He's not the reason anything happened tonight. They could have played a game where the rest of the team played fine, acclimated him, gotten him 17 minutes, and would have been thrilled with this. This kind of stat line here in a win would be you'd be doing backflips over. So nothing on Rob here, but as you said, Tatum not great. Brown a brutal game, 0 focus the whole time, both with the turnovers. The one he got picked from behind, he didn't get caught. He actually turned around and saw the guy behind him, then kept dribbling and got stripped anyway. I mean, some of that stuff was just brutally bad. And as I said, falling asleep off the ball on defense there, just lazy. And again, the Stars set the tone. Tatum said the other night when he had a massive bounce back, obviously against the Lakers, that the night before Joe basically had the "you're playing like an asshole" speech that, I think Ime would give those guys from time to time. And he responded. But the thing he says to them is, these guys follow your friggin' lead. So you want to look at the trickle-down effect it's had on the other guys who finally come back down to earth. You're going to always start with the Stars. Those guys play well. Those guys commit to moving the ball, moving their feet, moving without the ball, setting screens, keeping things going, keeping their teammates involved. You're more likely to keep your teammates involved. I don't think it's a coincidence that, as we pointed out, Sam Hauser fallen off a cliff. He went from 46 to 27% threes from November to December. Derek White from 47 to 29. Marcus Smart from 46 to 31. All of these guys have dropped off tremendously. And that's because I think you're stuck taking contested threes or, whatever it is, opportunities. I don't know. I mean, you can say everything is a good look if somebody's not directly in your face, but it's just not in flow anymore, as it was before. So I think it really is incumbent on the Stars to get back to what they were doing before and trusting each other and playing that style of basketball. I think that's, again, this is frustrating because we're a couple years into this, Bobby. You know the ticket to succeeding. Move the ball, move without the ball. Don't play the hero ball. Don't try to do too much, and good things happen. But they've fallen back into that pattern of trying to do a little bit too much.
Yeah, and Smart's been okay over this stretch. I don't want to put it on him, but
I'm not.
you
I'm
do
just saying
start
that
to see-
the shooting has come back
Well,
down.
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm saying when the shooting comes down, you do start to see him try to solve it at times by launching a few. I don't know how many he had exactly in this one, but feels like guys are trying to solve it themselves at times. Tatum in this one definitely was putting up shots, trying to power them back. Works a little better for Brown, but you get the turnovers with it. When you're playing from behind, he's going to get a little bit sloppier. So I think you see him get out of the flow of the offense too. And then Smart, 8 assists in this one. 1 turnover. So you really can't blame him. And even during that stretch where they're trying to come back there in the third quarter, you see him getting the group together at half court after the Tatum technical. And that was really the killer. I mean, Horford gets ejected. Brown turns it over at midcourt after a stop. They get it right into Wagner. Tatum follows him. He picks up a tech. Another free throw right there. So it's sort of 7 points within a 3-possession span between the Horford ejection and the Tatum tech there. And that put them down 16 midway through the third quarter, early third there. So that set a terrible tone. They gave up baskets in isolation pretty much every time they started to get a little thing going. So they weren't connected tonight on either end. And you're just not seeing that flow, like you said, offensively there. And you wonder what part fatigue's starting to play in this. And this is where you're going to get on Joe. Leaving them in against the Clippers, 38 for Tatum tonight, 36 for Brown. He keeps getting asked night in and night out, man, those starter numbers are a little high here. Well, guys aren't coming out late in games. You're not kind of shaving off minutes here or there. And he's just sort of brushed it off. And that's one of the explanations that's possible here, right? Fatigue, a little burnt out after that 6-game road trip. Horford's out, so some guys are overcompensating at center. Some guys are filling the middle a little bit. It's part of the equation, I'm sure.
Yeah. And, we've talked a lot about it, Bobby, you and I, the offense, defense sort of thing. Like, this is where defense obviously comes into play. Why, I don't want anyone to take out of context my thoughts about defense. I believe defense is a matter of choice, and I believe offense is something totally different. They had to commit to something completely different. They needed some personnel changes. They needed a totally new mentality and identity on offense. Their defense is just simply, again, commitment to doing what they do well. When you have all of these guys out here, when you get Rob back, you should be able to play defense. So you need on nights like this, when the shots aren't falling, you have to dig deep and find that. You can't shoot your way out of everything. On nights when the shot isn't falling, you got to win a rock fight by bearing down and playing good defense. They didn't do either tonight.
No, and it got worse as the game went on. Again, they put up a little fight there in the third.
It never improved at all. The whole game.
Yeah, it didn't. This one's startling, especially when you think of the crowd. And I don't want to do the whole, the crowd, but this place was dead. People left early fourth. They knew this team didn't have it. Then you got the boos post game, probably a little too late on those. But this crowd knew that the team was dead tonight, wasn't really giving it their all. And they responded by trying to rev them up at certain moments here, but the team just gave them nothing to cheer about outside those little Rob stretches. And this is a little startling right now. And I think we talked about during the West Coast stretch right there. I forget who was on, but I think Jimmy on the game you took off against the Lakers there. Jimmy asked me, are you concerned by some of the things that went on late in this trip? And man, imagine if they lose that Lakers game, what we're talking about right now, 4-game losing stretch and an awful one at that. You're getting worried about some of the things we've talked about, even through the success. Turnovers starting to creep up, 3-point reliance, how hard they have to work to get these looks in the half court at the very least. And then not getting those easy go-ahead baskets anymore that we saw from early in the schedule, even though they've moved into the top 10 defensively, which is kind of weird. I think that goes back to disconnectedness too. Like, they're just not in a flow right now. And I don't know why that is. It almost feels like no one's there to sort of rally them. And is that the impact of Horford not really being out there for that 5-game stretch? And then this one as well in the second half. I mean, that's just a killer there from Al. I don't know what got into him. Probably a mistake, but that added to everything that was going on here, certainly.
Yeah, I honestly, and I hate to put it on one thing, I think Al stays in that game. They probably find enough to pull to
I
make
think
that
so.
run and to pull it off.
I mean, he was playing well.
Things got thrown out. Blake was brutal, and you had to go to him because you couldn't do it. Cornette couldn't do anything in this game, and then Rob was just getting gassed. You once again went with zero bigs. This isn't the type of game where you can go small ball with Grant with the height that Orlando has out there. It's just not going to work. So you really needed some sort of presence there. It threw the whole thing out of whack there, and they got killed on second chance points as well. I mean, Orlando didn't play terrifically on offense either. So, it was, that definitely hurt them. And again, let's look at it. It was 15 offensive rebounds here, for the
Was
Magic.
it another big rebounding disparity?
It was a big one. It was 53. It was 53 to like 40. Let me look it up. It was 53-38. So a pretty big disparity with 15 coming on the offensive glass there.
61 to 47 was the number. So they got beat pretty bad out in LA too. So that's sort of carryover from.
Yeah. So to go back to what you said before.
Yeah.
To go back what you said before, I was totally aghast by the Golden State loss because I was surprised the team could do that again. That was the first time all year.
You talk about that, John, a lot. Like those losses that sort of linger and leave a team shaking a little bit. And it's usually the bad ones or mediocre ones, but something lingered there, I think.
The ones that make you question yourself because you're feeling great. Like I said, I use the bully analogy. You're in the schoolyard, you're beating the crap out of anybody, and then somebody walks up and just beats the tar out of you, and you're like, "Am I not that tough? Am I not as tough as I thought?" And then you fight somebody else, and that guy beats you too, and you're like, "Oh my god!" So you're like, I maybe I'm not that tough. Like you start to question something. The Warriors game stuck with them a little bit. I think they were surprised. I think it brought back, I hate speaking in like superficial generalities, but like, yeah, if you have a team who, that emasculated you in the finals and you have these losses that haunt you and you were this close to winning a title and you caved and they made you look like shit and you felt really bad about yourself. And then you went out there and they did it to you again. Yeah, that's going to hurt. I don't care what they say. Oh, this game was more about you guys than us. I don't buy it. But then it just exposed like, oh, they can still play like those assholes that Ime would get mad at during periods of time last year. Standing around, iso ball offense, not committing to defense, allowing easy buckets, settling for threes, missing balls at the basket, missing down low and not getting back on defense. Those leak outs during Golden State, those couple of games there. Just lazy stuff. And you're like, oh my God, I thought we were completely past that. So it wasn't just the mentality of what that loss might have done to the Celtics psyche. It was, as a fan, you'd watch them basically win in every way imaginable, even win when they hadn't played well. And they had a lot of gut check wins, and they were always, talent would just win out in the end. And then just to see them just play that same way that they played last year at times when they were at their absolute worst, I just thought it was a thing in the past. Then you had an absolute sleepwalk effort against the Clippers and another one tonight against Orlando. I mean, those were these are three horrible games out of four. And then, as you mentioned, Bobby, almost losing that Lakers game. So something's off, and they've definitely reverted back to habits that I think a lot of us, myself included, thought they'd kind of matured and grown out of.
Yeah, and who's going to rally them in this spot? You see Smart
does
to do
it. Smart tries to, and he tried to tonight a little. He's
the
only guy who does, and he does pull it in a little, but he couldn't do it all.
You think of in a game like this, as sloppy and disconnected as they were, 10-8-1, that's solid. Yeah, he did his job here. You needed Horford too. Rob probably threw off things a little bit in between, and you're gonna eat that in a game like this to get him integrated again. It's Brown and it's Tatum. It always stems from them. I think Joe's 100% right about that. I don't think Tatum was at his best in terms of activity in this one, and Brown certainly killed him with the turnovers. And he says it himself finally at this point, like he's taken ownership of it, and he said during that worst stretch, road trip there through Atlanta and New Orleans and all that it's lackadaisical, and I think that's what it was again in this one. You talked about the one where he got caught from behind. I talked about the one at midcourt there that you just can't have after a stop, leads to more free throws and attack. those are killers. And every time the Celtics drew close in this one, the Magic had an answer, either with a steal, a block, or a isolation pull-up. I mean, what was Markelle Fultz in that second half? Just going right at them. Pull-up twos. The guy who can't shoot, just draining them again and again, pouring in shots at the basket. Mo Wagner took it to them. This one looked a little personal after the Celtics kind of dumped them there a couple years ago. And then, didn't have the bowl revenge game, but I thought he was solid on the boards. They were physical. They were tough. They looked more energetic. And they looked like they had the game plan in this game, frankly, in terms of just kind of letting the Celtics launch and packing that middle with size.
Yeah. And I don't want to hear in the post game, oh, we didn't match their energy. Teams are going to come out for us. Like, you got to find it. Like, you're good enough to play 12 hard minutes and beat teams like this. They couldn't even muster that tonight. That's what's so frustrating is Celtics can sleepwalk through 3/4 of a game against a team like Orlando and then just decide to flip a switch and do it. They never did. That whole second half, you're waiting for it to happen. It never happened. And that's what was so, so frustrating there, is that it's Orlando, man.
Yeah.
It's hard to fathom that this is the game here. Anyway, we're gonna tell you briefly about a couple of things, and then hold on, we'll get into it. Nope, wrong one. We'll do this one. Rocket Money. What do you think about Rocket Money, Bobby?
I love it, and the one you mentioned, the part where you're able to see what companies are offering you if you're going to cancel their subscriptions.
Yeah,
potentially a better deal. You always don't think of that when you're going to cancel, and this is some of the stuff that Rocket Money lets you know.
I just got one of those actually, and it's exactly what happened. Was something that I was paying an insane amount for, 20 something a month, and then ended up going all the way down to $8 a month for the entire calendar year to keep the subscription. And I wanted to keep the subscription. So Rocket Money, what it does, it consolidates all of your, if you've heard of it before, the company used to be called Truebill. It takes all of your subscriptions, puts them in one place, and lets you see them. And you can decide, like, oh, crap, I didn't even know I had this. I can cancel. It'll renegotiate for you. 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about. Most people think they're spending 60, 70, $80 on things. Chances are you're spending closer to 200. So you can save hundreds and hundreds a month here if you go get a subscription to Rocket Money. Just go to rocketmoney.com/garden. Save potentially hundreds a year. Once again, rocketmoney.com/garden. Cancel all of those unnecessary subscriptions. It's definitely worth it, and I saved myself money literally instantly by doing that. Other thing, of course, we want to talk about, as you know, Athletic Greens, our other sponsor. AG1, baby. One of our favorite sponsors, been with us for a while now. Product we all take here on the Garden Report. Orders keep pouring in. I'm super happy about it. We'll tell you about an opportunity here if you can as well. And I believe we've included the form here somewhere in the channel. But basically, I'll tell you in a minute. Subscribe to AG1 here. Why? Because it's awesome. You're looking for ways to improve your health, more energy, optimize your immune system. You don't want to take a bunch of pills, vitamins, supplements. Boom, one scoop. Athletic Greens, cup of water, and you're done. It's super easy to do. As I said, you do it early in the morning, and then you never have to think about, anything else really again for the rest of the day. Diet friendly, sugar free, tons of endorsements, healthcare professionals, athletes, celebrities, what have you. 7,000 5-star reviews. So again, time to reclaim your health, arm your immune system. Convenient daily nutrition, one scoop in the water, done. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy on you and to give you added incentive, we're going to do two things for you, us and Athletic Greens. We are a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. If you go to athleticgreens.com/garden, again, athleticgreens.com/garden. Also, you get Kablamo, phenomenal t-shirt. We have sent the first batch out. We got a lot more coming out. We will send them to you as well. So check that out. There's a form that you can fill out, and that will allow you to get your free subscription. We are going to say goodbye to Bobby Manning. He's going to do some post-game gathering for us right now. We're going to say hello to this guy, Josue Pavon. He's going to jump in, and he's going to talk a little bit about tonight's game. We'll try to get to Bobby a little bit later on if he can circle back and get on the show. So what's up, Josue? We've kind of been over it a bit, but what stood out to you, my man?
Just with the Celtics, obviously a lot lost. That's sort of been the DNA of this team, is that freedom to go out there and pick the. He's not going to tell them not to. So I get that. So again, them having to make those decisions and have to figure. I just felt like they just could have been the terms of disrupting them offensively, like Jaylen Brown have one of those nights where they
Hold on, Josue having a couple technical difficulties. We'll see if he can sort it out here. A little bit of the some digital hits there. See if he can figure it out, or Josue, if you need to check a different spot or reload here. But you were in and out a little bit on your audio. We covered a bunch of stuff. While Josue gets set up, I'll take some questions here. If you guys in the chat want to talk about anything you saw tonight, my number one question to all of you guys is, what level of concern? I don't like to go one by one. Like one loss, you lose your mind. One great win, you overdo it. To me, it's ultimately how that loss looked, what it tells you about the team, whether you think it has, far-reaching effects. Same thing with the victories. So my question is, who's freaked out right now? A little bit, a little bit from that Golden State game on. I'm not entirely sure. For my part, I didn't want to see the stuff creep back in that we saw from them last year. And I don't know if I tried to convince myself or I believed it that it was over, but I kind of did try to convince myself that it was over. And I feel like I was a little bit caught off guard with how bad they played in Golden State, and then especially the Clippers game, and then this game tonight. No idea. So, I got people in here talking about Luke. Look, this is another thing we're going to talk about as well. This is what we didn't know. How much of the stuff that we saw in November was unsustainable. And I wanted to believe if it came back down to earth, it would only come back down to earth a little bit. And I'm not talking about just Luke. I'm talking about all of the shooting stuff we talked about. First off, Hauser, dream come true. Where did this guy come from? And again, I caught a lot of crap for saying things like, how did this guy get good in 2 months? He didn't work on his game so much that all of a sudden he went from an unplayable mess to an absolute threat and a guy who's going to win the 3-point shootout. This is a guy who couldn't see the court at any point last year, and all of a sudden he's playing 25 minutes a game and knocking down 6 and 7 threes. Unbelievable. He's plummeted down to earth. He's almost kind of in the unplayable category right now. Derek White, a lot of people wanted an apology cam. Why don't I do apology cams? Derek White's December is why I don't do apology cams. He's turned back into last year's Derek White offensively, which is a bummer because he was so freaking good for so long during the month of November to start the year. And then, what are we saying? They'll fall when it matters. Not concerned, but the question arises, will they fall short again? I don't know. And then, as we said, is how sustainable were all of these contributions? My fear was that they weren't going to be able to hold up that long, but that they wouldn't come crashing down to earth. I guess this is what you have. I mean, you have a really hard regression to the mean when a guy who's a lifetime 36% three-point shooter shoots 47 for the first 25 games of the year. Yeah, it's going to crash at some point. So it's right now they're crashing, and I think everything's crashing at once, which is why you're seeing some of what you're seeing, which is a team that looks nothing like the team that was basically, we're talking about what was an unprecedented record-setting offense, an offense that was shaming the greatest offenses that have ever played in the NBA by a good margin in terms of offensive rating. And now they go from that to, over the last 4, 5, 6 games, the worst offense in the league. That's hard to see, but moreover, it's hard to unsee. And that's what's kind of going to stick with me is it's hard to unsee the Golden State loss. It's going to be hard to unsee, sure, Milwaukee goes out, gets blown out on a one game against Memphis the other night, and you'd be like, you have those flush it sort of games. But the way that the Celtics have been playing in these losses recently is hard to unsee. So I am definitely a little worried because you don't want to know that still exists in them. You like to believe that they'll have a bad game here and there, and then they'll find it, they'll find a way to turn it around. But it just hasn't happened right now. And yeah, White's been awful, a little bit. White's been awful lately, and don't just look at White's shooting. Look at his minutes. Granted, he came in and ended up with 26 minutes tonight, but he's starting to get reduced a little bit in his minutes. He had 21 one night and 18 another. He's not being used as much as he was. And there were stretches last year. If you look at his game logs in the playoffs, stretches where Ime lost a little bit of faith in him as well. And right now, I'm not saying he's out of the rotation, but he's definitely not giving them the minutes that they want there. And he hasn't been as good with the starters recently as well. So a lot of people are putting stuff on Joe here. Yeah. When stuff goes wrong, you need somebody to kind of pull it together. Who's going to be that guy? We mentioned Marcus, possibly. Yeah, possibly. But you got to find it with Joe, or Joe's going to have to figure something out. Now, this is where things get a little tricky with him. Now that he's got his full roster back, how's he going to start playing it? Is he going to change his rotations? Is he going to adapt to what's working and not working? Is he going to ride hot hands? Is he going to stay with what he has in order to try to establish some sort of flow and some sort of rotation that he can trust on? And I never really know what that is and the best method to do that. Should you coach game by game, or do you have just things that you do and lineups that you like and your rotations and you really want to stick with them? And now we're saying Hauser's in the scouting report. Look, I think Hauser was in the scouting report before, to tell you the truth. It's people knew he could shoot. People didn't think he could do much else. He actually impressed us mainly with being able to hold his own on defense enough to allow him on the court. But right now, I don't know that it's a book on Hauser. I believe it's a little bit of a book on the Celtics. They are running out on them a little bit more, and they're trying to run them off that line some. And some of those shots are a little bit more rushed now. I think they were getting better quality shots before, and they're not now. You're talking about an aggressive correction. It is an aggressive correction, but these things have a way of snowballing and bad habits forming. And particularly when those bad habits are already something that you're used to doing or you've done in the past, that's what kind of freaks me out as well. Hauser rushing his shots? Yeah, I agree. I think the whole team kind of is now too. Hauser is very much rushing his shots. The second he gets it, he's looking to launch it right away. Blame Pie? Who wants to talk Blame Pie? Every time we do Blame Pie, I start with the stars. Whether they play well or they get the lion's share of the credit and they get the lion's share of the blame. Biggest slice of the blame pie always goes to the top players because you start top down, and that's where it goes. It's Tatum and Brown, and however they go, the rest of the team follows. As we said, Missoula said to Tatum the other day, when you play this bad, everybody plays bad. And then he came back and he played dynamite against the Lakers. When Tatum and Brown are both off, and both seem worse than off, disengaged, that's the worst of it. It's really hard to recover from that when your stars are settling. When your stars are settling for shots or not focused or not fully committed on the defensive end, not moving, ball kind of sticks to them a little bit. It's really hard for the rest of the team to get into rhythm. I don't think you're going to find games where Tatum and Brown play in that manner and that the rest of the team lifts them. That's going to be those are going to be few and far between, I think. People mad about Bol? Yeah. It's fair. It's fair. Oh yeah. Thanks, Luis. You know, she changed her mind on the pie, I'll tell you that much. She changed her mind on the pie. She hated it, and she changed her mind. I'm going to check with Josue and see if he's coming back. And if he's not, we might have to wrap the show a little bit early. But if he is, I'll hang on and filibuster a little bit and talk with you guys until we figure out if he's going to make it. Hans, we did talk Hauser, and I don't know what you guys think here. Again, looking at the comments, there's some people that believe this is just a very harsh regression to the mean. in a correction. They were way over their heads, 46, 47% from three, and we're talking multiple guys. Hauser 46, White 47, Smart 47 for the month of November. That stuff's coming down because there's no way that that's what those guys are. They're not. Hauser might be. Hauser might be a guy who can shoot 40 something percent from three for his career. He's that good a shooter. But right now, I think it's simply a matter of maybe the book's out a little, as somebody said. Maybe they're rushing out on him a little bit. The shots do feel a little bit rushed. And they're scared to keep him in there for too long because right now, Hauser's almost like Neesmith in the regard. I'm not comparing them because I don't think Neesmith was ever the shooter we thought he was or that Hauser currently is. But it was basically, this is what they do with Pritchard from time to time too. You're out there, and if you're making shots, you can keep your minutes. But if those shots aren't falling, I'm going to go with somebody else because the rest of what you do out here isn't going to necessarily work for me. Hauser's had too many of those where he goes out and he jacks a couple early. They're not falling. He gets pulled. He doesn't see many minutes the rest of the way. We'll check in. Josue is back. Josue, how's the audio? Give it a shot.
Look, they shut the side down, so hopefully it's much better now. How am I looking? How am I sounding?
You look good. You're on a little bit of lag, but I'm going to roll with it for a minute and see what happens.
Oh, boy. Well, look, to piggyback on your point there, he's got to find other ways to be effective. And I was thinking the same thing was going to happen. Pull that, never hit that button, which I understand why, because the Celtics team just was just trying to figure out on their own. But, yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, you look at this month, he's shooting the arc, so it's been an ongoing issue for sure.
For who?
For Hauser.
It's tough.
Percent this month.
It's the whole thing is bad. They've fallen off. And again, this was Bobby's biggest worry. That, like, what happens when the shots don't fall? We're kind of seeing it. So, maybe I wanted to believe like it wasn't going to happen. And like, it was really, I wanted to believe, and I still kind of do, it was really a product of what they were doing. But I think this team really can snowball really quickly. Things don't go right. Offense affects defense, where they get out of that game a little bit and they stop doing what they were doing, moving the ball on offense. And the trickle down is incredible there. And that's why, to me, we're talking about the blame pie. It always starts with the best players. They have to be leading by example in terms of what they do. They have to be engaged. They have to be moving without the ball. They have to be trying to make their teammates better. And when they don't do it, I think things go to shit. And that's kind of what we've seen lately. Is that's the most consistent trend throughout these games is stars trying to do too much and or just not kind of being locked in and engaged on both ends of the floor at all times. Tatum, just too much settling.
It starts with the defense too. I mean, look, that's what Missoula talked about as being still their backbone, still their DNA. And once they stop doing that, this is the sort of results you get. Again, not that this team is one of those. We know that much isn't true, but shot selection was big, and also was being out rebounded. What was it, 50 to 35? A lot of second chance points for the Orlando Magic as well, especially in that fourth quarter. They were like 2 for 27 from behind the arc at one point, from the second quarter bleeding into like midway through the fourth. So that was a lot of empty possessions that the Celtics were trying to make up.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. It's just, again, the three losses in the last week or so, they're also hard to wrap your mind around. The Golden State loss was, shocking just because it reminded you exactly of the finals, and you just didn't think you'd see that again. And then next game out, you figure that they're going to come down and they're going to be friggin' jacked up for the Clippers there, and they just weren't at all. It was, that game wasn't competitive. They got their doors blown off there in the second half, and then tonight it's just unfathomable. I mean, What odds would you have to have been given to not bet on the Celtics tonight? I mean, I know people talk about the hardest game is the game where you come back and play home after a long road trip. The Celtics aren't the first team to fall victim to that. There's a little bit of a crash there, but like with Rob returning and having Rob and Al back and the opponent being Orlando, I couldn't in a million years fathom that what happened tonight was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking the same thing too, John. But this is a hot Orlando. That was probably one of their best or most impressive wins of the season. And you can say the same thing about the Golden State Warriors. So you look at teams putting out their best effort against the Celtics, and the Celtics just aren't stretches where the offense runs dry. They can't string together stops, and they're starting to play from behind. I mean, it sort of started already in the first half of this one. Right, and then all of a sudden by halftime, that snowball effect that the Celtics tend to do, when things are wrong, when things are going badly on offense, they have to stop that. And that's exactly what Missoula was talking about, after this game, their identity.
Yeah. I want to get your take on Rob, and then we'll wrap. Rob to me looked like he was super gassed, and we knew that. That's what was keeping him from coming back. He just wasn't in basketball shape, and that was the issue. He's not anywhere close to basketball shape. I think obviously that first stint he looked really discombobulated, but he was all over the place. He was like a puppy dog that you just let out of the cage. He was just running all over the place. 3 quick fouls. Almost like a rookie. Playing his first game, but he had a lot of pep. Second stint was the energy that they needed, and that kind of got him back into a game after that lead. Things got up to about 17 points there, I think, when he checked in the third quarter. That last stint, when he came in the fourth quarter, he had absolutely nothing in the tank, nothing at all. Absolutely gassed. But physically, he looked okay, right? Like, how did he look to you? He looked like when he wasn't exhausted, he looked springy and agile and athletic.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, and that's encouraging. I mean, to be able to keep up with these guys, they're they got almost 30 games under their belt, and he's gonna take some time to get there. But I think it's very, very encouraging that he has that bounce. He caught more than the crowd going. You saw the bounce there, so that's a really good sign. That's just exactly what you want to see for the Celtics, because we've seen him in the past before coming off of injuries, and 6 months being away from the game for 6 months or over 6 months, and he's got that bounce for sure. So I think that's a really good sign. And I think his spirit is there, and I think he told us Adam took away a whole lot of nerves. He was very, very nervous, very tired.
Yeah,
after those first few minutes, but then he was able to settle in, and that's exactly what you want to see. And I'm looking for him to bounce back. On Sunday, I think this team he's going to be a part of that.
Yeah, I was overall encouraged by Rob. I thought he'd look worse. He looked bad basketball wise. He looked lost. He was out of position a lot, over aggressive at times with the fouls, and a couple of jumped out at the 3-point line a couple of times, maybe overhelped a couple of times. Needed to hold his position. So he hurt as much as he helped at times, but it didn't matter, because ultimately you just want to see him look physically good and know that he can ramp up, get himself in shape, probably drop another 10 pounds or so as he's playing his way back into shape, get a little bit leaner, more agile, into better condition. He definitely looks a little bit bulky right now, and he's a little bit better, when he's playing probably at a lower weight there, and I think that'll help him. But on the whole, looked pretty good. So that's a positive sign. He's back. I'm happy. That's at least one thing that makes me happy. But the game,
that's your guy.
That's my guy. I'm happy for him. You know what was great? The best moment of the entire game wasn't even the first alley-oop dunk. It was the moment before it, when you knew it was going to happen. The entire crowd, you saw the whole play in slow motion, and Smart goes, and Rob's there, and you know it's going up, and you know he's going to toss it, and everybody in the crowd already up. That's probably the only time the crowd, the most the crowd got into all night, and like, it's happening! Yeah, here it is! And even Gorman was like, oh, here we go! And, he knew it was coming, and he tossed it to him, and you could see when Rob caught it, he threw it down, he was like, yeah! Like he was, so that was a moment. I'm glad we got that. We needed to see it. Yeah.
You know why? I feel like it was extra emphatic because times like, no, come on. And then Marcus just, as soon as they made eye contact, you saw him sort of plant both his feet,
load up,
get ready to soar, and everyone saw it. Yeah,
everybody
exactly.
in the
So
building
he was anticipating
saw
it. Like, yeah, no, that's great. He's he's just one of those guys, man. It's just fun to root for, you know. And a lot of the teammates say the same thing, but you see it with the crowd. I mean, it wasn't the first one. I think it was the second. The crowd was just begging for a comeback, man. It just never came for the Celtics. I mean, they got it down to single digits. They just couldn't get it past a 2-possession game. And it's funny, man. 2 of these guys, it was pretty cool. Fans of the show. And I was like, man, it's just too bad that the comeback came short. And this crowd was filing out by like the 2-minute mark, or before that. I think it was the 3-minute mark, man. This crowd I see.
Yeah, no, it was brutal, but yeah, it was a tough one. But they got another one Sunday, same 2 teams. I'll let these guys go. They got some work to do at the Garden. Plus, we have the Bull Gang tearing it apart because you've got it's Celtics Bruins.
Oh, that's right.
Like for the next 10 days here. So there's a lot of turnover. We're gonna wrap it up from the Garden. Let these guys go. We'll have a full cast of characters on Sunday, including Sherrod, I think, back in the fold, and possibly Jimmy as well. So we'll be back. It's a 3:00 game. So we'll be talking to you there after that one is over. But until then, for Josue, I'm John Zannis, Bobby Banning. Thanks for